Sign the Serbs are ready to give up. A spokesman for the UN aid agency says the mostly Muslim city is on the verge of collapse. Bosnian government officials are calling on the UN Secretary General to order stronger NATO action.
They should prevent Serbs from entering the city and slaughtering the people. What they can do now, they can knock down the artillery and tanks that are near Bihać, and the Serbs will withdraw.
Bihać is in a UN-designated safe area, meaning UN forces are authorized to protect civilians there. Serb shelling prompted NATO to send warplanes buzzing over the city today, but darkness fell before any bombs could be dropped. Russia's foreign minister is warning tonight that more NATO airstrikes could destroy the peacekeeping effort in which Russia is a partner.
If NATO starts to airstrike outside extreme necessity and the out framework of the peacekeeping operation, then, of course, it will change the nature of international involvement in Bosnia.
The Serbs are trying to retake territory lost to the Bosnian army last month. The Bosnian Serb chief of staff warned the Bosnian government troops defending Bihać they are surrounded and must now surrender. UN Secretary General Boutros Ghali says that he's trying to arrange another ceasefire.
Christine Shelley said in Washington an earlier ceasefire is not holding. There were reports of heavy fighting as Serb forces closed in on Bihać with tanks and continued to shell it with artillery. NATO warplanes again flew over the area, but no bombs were dropped. We have more in this report by Jane Bennett-Powell of Independent Television News.
Despite an ultimatum from NATO, the Serb attack continued on the town, and UN sources this afternoon said Serb forces were 1 kilometer away. They were on the verge of taking the town, and a NATO source said there was little it could do. The 50,000 population of Bihać is swollen by 20,000 as surrounding inhabitants escape the advancing Serbs. The town was being attacked from almost all sides, but especially from the Delbiacha Ridge to the south. The Serbs hold 2/3 of the high ground, burning villages as they advance into the UN-designated safe area, which comprises the town and immediate environs. Serb artillery is also coming across the border from Serb-held Croatia, according to contacts in the town. To the north lies territory held by the Bosnian army, and it's towards this area that inhabitants were fleeing this afternoon, according to the mayor of Bihać, who was contacted by radio and telephone link this afternoon. All day, British planes of the NATO force have been flying reconnaissance missions to monitor the fighting. But UN troops are still pinned down by Serb forces in central Bosnia and in Sarajevo. And the people of Bihać face another night of fear and uncertainty.
There was also fighting today in the Bosnian capital of Sarajevo between the Bosnian Serbs and government forces. Kwame?
Fighting broke.
Bosnian Serbs entered Bihać behind a barrage of missile and tank fire while the Serbian chief of staff called on government troops to surrender. Accounts of the battle from the Bosnian government side painted a picture of desperation. Bihac's mayor in a phone call with European journalists.
There is panic in the town. There is fear amongst its 70,000 population, extreme fear. Everything in the town is breaking down.
There was no talk of truce. Serbian leader Radovan Karadzic scoffed at a U.S. decision to deploy Marines to the Adriatic Sea near Bosnia. The best way to have another Vietnam, he said, adding it's his plan to destroy the Bosnian army.
We are not going to stop this time. We are not going to give them a breath.
NATO jets were in the air again. 2 British warplanes drew Serbian fire over central Bosnia. But the UN's refusal to endorse a full-scale NATO assault in the battle for Bihać has enraged the Bosnian government. Prime Minister Haris Silajdžić accused the UN's commander of playing into Serbian hands at the expense of Bosnian lives.
General Rose is right here, standing right there. And I am telling him it is your responsibility to call for the airstrikes, or you are not doing your job.
The general responded with controlled fury.
And I hope that we will go on being able to do a job of work, keeping the people of this country alive and trying to stop the sort of fighting, this ghastly fighting that we see going on in Bihać at the moment.
In Sarajevo, UN armor provided a slow-moving shield from Serbian gunfire, the only safe way to cross some streets. But it would take a tank in every driveway to protect the whole city. And the UN force just isn't that big. The UN never planned to fight a war here. The aim was to bolster peace. Richard Roth, NBC News, Sarajevo.
The conflict in Bosnia has been going on for 31 months now. It has left about 200,000 people dead or missing. NBC's Jim Maceda has a report.
In every chapter of this war, civilians have paid the heaviest price, killed by shells or bullets or torture. These were the crimes World War II was supposed to end: ethnic brutality, forced deportations, genocide. But 50 years after the Nazi defeat, they are the very crimes, say human rights monitors, that rage across Bosnia.
The people are trapped. The civilians who are trying to flee the town that's taken become the victims of human rights violations. They're detained, or they're arbitrarily killed, or there's rapes.
Those who survive most often choose silence. But a voice has emerged. Earlier this month, the UN Yugoslavia War Crimes Tribunal opened its doors in The Hague. Its first act of business, requesting jurisdiction for this Bosnian Serb, furthest from the camera. Dusan Tadic, currently detained in a German prison. Called the Butcher of Omaška, Tadic is alleged to have forced some Muslims to castrate fellow prisoners.
He killed, he tortured, raped. He loved it. But he's a small fish. He was a nobody who obeyed orders.
Few victims believe the international community has the will to bring the big fish to trial. Indeed, Serbia's President Slobodan Milosevic, considered the architect of ethnic cleansing, now enjoys the West's support as a peacemaker. But advocates say the tribunal will send a signal to at least some victims who need to see justice done before any real peace can emerge.
Victims begin to blame people collectively when no one is individually brought to justice. And then in another 5 or 10 years down the line, you'll see the same sort of war, the same sort of violence erupt again.
While Serbs have reportedly committed the most atrocities, Muslims and Croats are also to blame.
Out of Bosnia and let the Bosnians save themselves. Defense Secretary William Perry says a war would bring many casualties.
War, win the war, so to speak, would involve several 100,000 ground troops involved in long and protracted warfare with many casualties. We are not planning to do that.
In Germany, many Jewish cemeteries are being vandalized by right-wing groups. Swastika says it appears the Bosnian government has lost the 31-month war. Around the world, people celebrate Hanukkah.
Hand combat in Bihać, closing in on the town's hospital. That hospital is overflowing with nearly 2,000 patients. The mayor of the city says they're close to surrendering.
This man is a transsexual, and he is suing the state of Kentucky. He says...
Serb TV released pictures of these Bosnian army prisoners of war. TV pictures also show Serb forces tearing down the Bosnian flag near Bihać now that they have crossed over the UN's line into the Bihać safe area. The Serbs have seized up to 40% of the enclave.
A couple from New York experiences a new high in childbirth. The couple was on TWA Flight 265 when the unexpected happened.